All right, so let's take a look at where we left off last time. You can see here as I move my ship around, I can left click and fire a bunch of rockets. Also up here, we have an asteroid in our scene. I'm going to go ahead and delete that out because we already have it referenced inside of our random spawner. So when I press play, it randomly spawns at the top of the scene in different locations. Ideally, we want to have our asteroid go down facing our ship, potentially, and we want to, the goal of this game essentially is to blow up as many asteroids as we can, and maybe we'll make like a little box or something. Or we'll just have it where if you blow up 10 asteroids before they get past you, you win the game. So let's go into our scripts folder and let's create another C# script. And this is going to be called Asteroid. Now this particular script is going to be used for anything that essentially deals with or handles the asteroid. So for example, movement, things like that. And as you start to script more, I'm going to be doing breaking some programming conventions as I create these games for you as we work on this together, because sometimes it's just easier to understand it. And then as we progress and we get more into object-oriented programming and data structures and so forth, you'll go back and refactor this code or clean it up. But overall, this kind of piecemeal approach and sort of creating individual little scripts is a good way of sort of starting out. So any sort of asteroid functionality with movement when it's spawned into our scene, we'll use our asteroid for. So here we have our asteroid prefab. I'm just going to drag this asteroid script here. You can see it appears towards the bottom, and then I'm just going to do, because it's down here, we don't necessarily have to open the prefab, but you'll see that it's here. So let's go ahead and double click this script and we will edit it in Visual Studio. All right, so here we are in Visual Studio, and what we're going to do is pretty basic. We're going to grab the rigid body component, much like we did inside of our ship. So let me go ahead and jump over to that ship script so you can see that. So here we have our spaceship controller script, right? And if you recall from before, we had it where we got the component, which is the rigid body, and then we just added velocity to it. Well, I'm going to keep this pretty simple for now. I'm just grabbing that line. You can click 17 here and hit Control-C to copy that, and then go back in here. And then in our update, I can paste this. Now, we're getting a couple errors. And what those errors are is it says movement and speed. And the reason for that is these variables don't exist in this script. Now, to save time, I'm not going to actually create those two variables. I'm just really going to create a new vector 3. So I'm going to allocate some space for that. And then within this, the X is going to be 0. Remember, that's the left and right. The Y is the up and down towards the camera. And then for the Z, you know what, we will make a variable here, and we'll just call that like public, and we'll do float, which is like a whole number with a decimal value. So it's, it can be a partial number like 0.5. And we'll just call this asteroid speed. Now, something I didn't talk about before is the reason why I'm using a capital A in some and lowercase in others. In some programming conventions, anytime something is public, you make it capital. And again, that goes back and forth. So here's our asteroid speed, and I'll make this equal to -50. And let's go ahead and save this. And so I'll show you why this is like -50. We could always edit it in the viewport because it's public. But we're going to get that rigid body component and make it move -50, which is going to be down. Now, the other part of this is I don't think we have an actual rigid body on our asteroid, so let's go ahead and add that as well. All right, so here we are, and let's select our asteroid. And you can see here that we have asteroid speed -50. We can edit that. And it doesn't actually have a rigid body component. So let's hit Add Component, and let's select Rigid Body. Remember, we want to turn off Use Gravity because we don't want it to fall down. Here, I'll leave that on to show you just in case you need a refresher. You can see that it spawns, but it falls. So if we remove this Use Gravity, it should move this way. So like if I select my ship as an example, see how our we have an X, Y, and Z value. If I move my Z value downwards, it heads negative. So I went with -50 so that my asteroid moves down in this direction, negative. So let's hit play and see what happens. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is add one more thing. And what that is I'd like to spawn more than one of these asteroids at a time. So like maybe we'll have like 10 spawn and you have to shoot them. And actually 50 might be too fast. Let's actually do minus 10. Give our player some time to actually shoot these asteroids. And then later, if you decide to expand these games, you can increase, you can play with the numbers to play with the game design, like make it go faster over time or something. But here's our spaceship, and I really think that's way too slow. So on our spaceship here, where is my spaceship script? So I'm going to make this speed like 50. I think just overall, nobody wants to play a game where you have like a very slow ship. All right, so there we go. All right, so let's jump back in the script and let's randomly, let's spawn more than one spaceship. All right, so here's our random spawner script, and I'm going to go ahead and remove some of these sections. Now, ideally, I would love it if you all would comment out your code. But we're going to do something that we haven't really seen. It's in the beginner tutorials, but if you didn't watch them, I'm going to sort of explain a little bit more. There's something called a for loop. So I'm going to type the word for, and anything with this little box here, you can see down here. If I press enter, it'll auto-populate that for us, and then I can hit tab. So in a for loop, there's 3 parts to it. We have a starting conditional point, and this is actually the structure here. We have a for loop, and then we have a starting condition. So as long as I, which is this variable that only exists in here, equals 0, and let's say I is less than the number of ships that we'd like to spawn. So let's say 5. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to increment I, so I plus plus. So this is like a way of saying I equals I plus 1. So it's going to run through this loop several times until I is we want I to be equal to 5, not less than 5. Because if I is less than 5 and it's 0, this thing will never run. So I'm going to go ahead and select lines 31 through 34 and just drag them inside of here. Let's hit tab to move those in. I'm going to save this. Now, let me actually go ahead and show you this I is less than 5 and show you that this never runs because I is less than 5 at 0. So just to show that. So let's go back to Unity, and I'm going to go ahead and press play here. And, looks like it spawned all 5 of those pretty quickly. And we'll build out like a wait timer. Oh, you know what it is? I is less than 5. We'll increment I. So as long as, yeah, that's right, actually. So as long as I is less than 5, which it is 0, we'll increment it by 1. So what happens is, as it runs through this loop, I becomes 1. Sorry, I had a little bit of a baby exhaustion there. But so I is equal to 0, so I becomes 1. It runs through this loop. So actually, let's do this so that you can see this a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and inside of this for loop, I'm going to print to my console I, and then colon and the space equals, let's see, I, colon, and then plus I. So we'll do I instead of colon, maybe I equals this. So what we'll see in our console, let's make sure we put a semicolon here, is every time it runs through this for loop, you'll see I and whatever the value it is plus 1. So choose see 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So let's go back in here and let's go to our window, and then let's open up our, let's see, our general and then our console manager. And I'm going to go ahead and move this off to the side, and I'm going to press play. And you can see it says I 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 is less than 5. I didn't say is I is less than or equal to 5. So you can see there it spawned 4. So it ran through the for loop. Now, what I'd like to do is later we can go through. So we spawned 4 and then they're coming down, so we have to shoot those. Let's see, let's press play one more time. You can see that here they are. They're kind of spreaded out. We can use something called a coroutine, which might be a little bit outside of the scope of this tutorial. I might add that as a bonus video. But for now, I think, let's see how that looks. It looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and save this. Like, make sure the script is saved. And what we'll do is we'll leave this as is, because in the next video what we should do is we should start working on making those asteroids blow up, and then we'll do a UI, and then if there's time, we'll do like a bonus video where we can actually pace out where those asteroids go down a little bit slower.